Hey everyone, it is Matt, and I am here with the long-awaited 15,000 mile review of my Jeep Grand Cherokee Trailhawk Stingray. Stingray? How do you guys pronounce that? Comment below. That funny gray color. What do they call it? Battleship, I guess, if you're a Charger owner or Challenger owner. Anyway, 15,000 miles, technically 16,746 miles. I've been busy, guys. It's tough to get back on this. I've been working on the Ram Overland project, and I have neglected my daily driver, the Jeep Grand Cherokee. And so, to that point, this is my daily driver. It's why it has so many miles on it. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on what this vehicle has to offer at this point, and we're going to talk about that. So, first off, we're going to talk a little bit about wear and tear. What's it like to own one of these? Cost of ownership. We'll talk a little bit about the ride quality, drivability, usability of this vehicle. And then finally, I'll wrap up with my opinions of, in general, would I buy this vehicle again? So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about cost of ownership. So again, I've had this vehicle for about 9 months now, 16,000 miles. We've done 2 pretty good sized road trips with it. It's been to Chicago, it's been to Ohio, it has been to Gatlinburg, which was probably the longest road trip. That one was around 1,000 miles. And it is daily driven. So my commute is 35 miles to work, 35 miles from work, pretty much all interstate, a little bit of city driving, but mostly interstate driving. So we've done a little bit of everything. It has done some dirt roads, it has done some fire roads. I have not done any true off-roading in it. And by true off-roading, anything where I really felt like there was going to be a need for extrication or anything, winch ready. So gentle off-roading, stuff that I certainly wouldn't do in a car, but didn't feel that was out of the scope or span of what this vehicle could do. So far, 2 oil changes have been required, and both of those oil changes were covered by the Jeep Wave program. So if you're not familiar with that, certain Jeep vehicles qualify for Wave, and it includes tire rotations and oil changes. I think it's 2 a year, but don't quote me on that. Look it up with Jeep. So there's been 0 cost of ownership as it relates to general maintenance. I am oddly still running the original windshield wipers. I'm running the original rear wipers, and what else? Yeah, obviously original brakes still on the vehicle. So so there's really been in 16,000 miles, no major cost. So it's really been 0. I run 87 octane fuel. On a couple of occasions, I've thrown 89 octane in there. This vehicle runs just fine on 87 octane, doesn't seem to care. So it's inexpensive to fill up. We'll talk a little bit about the gas mileage when we talk about the driving experience, but it does run just fine on cheap fuel. I have replaced the tires, and again, I'll speak to that when we talk about the driving experience. So that is the only major cost, was putting new tires on, but those were not required. There are a couple of things that I will speak to, however, as it relates to wear and tear. The first is I am currently having a problem with the sunroof. So the sunroof has a intermittent issue where it will not close. And the first time it happened, it was because a screw had come out of the buffer that pops up, and I replaced that screw, threw a little Loctite on it, no problems. Now it seems to be more of a sensor issue. When I open the vent, close the vent, it opens right back up. And on occasion, if I slide the sunroof back, close it again, it wants to pop itself back open. So I think it's a sensor issue. I'm going to take it in and have Jeep take a look at it. Now that it's closed, I'm leaving it closed. But that's the only actual issue with the vehicle that I have had. It's the only mechanical problem that's going to require some fixing. Outside of that, two other issues. One, the seats I feel like are wearing a little bit faster. I'll post a picture up here right now so you can see it. But I've had several vehicles. I'm meticulous about putting the leather treatment, leather care on my seats. These get, whenever the car is detailed, I do put leather cleaner and leather conditioner on them. So they are quite soft and supple, but they are starting to show just a little bit of wear, more wear than I'd like to see at 16,000 miles. And the other issue that I'll report is at 10,000 miles, I might have mentioned this car had no rattles, and I was really impressed with that. Those days are over. This thing rattles like crazy. It feels like an American car, unfortunately. So I have a whistle coming from what I believe is either both mirrors or trim around my front windshield. I'm not quite able to figure out exactly where the sound is coming from, but there is a whistle at around 30 to 35 miles per hour that is getting very annoying, mostly when it's cold. So it's something where there's a seal shrinking up and allowing some air to pass through, and a significant rattle or set of rattles coming from the tailgate. I believe it's the tailgate itself. There's a plastic trim piece on the tailgate that I can tap and it's loose. There's also a little bit of play in the wing on the back, the spoiler. Both of those appear to be rattling. Also, the license plate, the way that the license plate mounts, there are no holes for the bottom of the plate. So you're only mounting the plate at the top. I've tried bending that out, but the combination of those, as well as the jack, which will not stay in a tight position, it works itself loose, has created a cacophony of rattles in the back. And I'm currently running with a lot of shop rags jammed in places to try to quiet those down. I don't think Jeep will do anything, but I will bring those rattles up when I take it in for the sunroof. So long and short of it, only major failure that I have is the sunroof. It hasn't completely failed, but I don't feel safe opening it at the moment. I'm sure they'll be able to fix that with warranty. Seats are wearing a little bit more than I would like them to, and significant rattles in the back. So now let's talk a little bit about the driving capabilities and what I think about owning and driving this vehicle every day. So let's talk a little bit about driver comfort, drivability, everyday use. I'm going to try to do this without the sun shining in my face the entire time. So as I mentioned, I drive this every day to work. I put about 70 miles on the vehicle. It is interstate driving for the most part. I've taken it on a couple of road trips, one that was just over 1,000 miles, the other couple, 300 to 400, so relatively small road trips. And what I've found in that time is that it really does make for a pretty comfortable drive. There are a couple of caveats, and I'll get to those, but let's talk about what is really good. The first is visibility. For a relatively small sport utility, the visibility in this vehicle is very, very good. Windows are large. The factory tint is not particularly dark. You do have a really good seating posture in this vehicle. So understanding where your front end, where the back end is not bad at all. Very few blind spots to deal with. I will say one of the nice things about this vehicle is the fact that it does have included blind spot warnings. So in the mirror, as well as a tone if you choose. So even when there is a blind spot caused by the few spots in the car that are hard to see out of, you do have blind spot monitoring. The other really great thing about driving this vehicle, this particular vehicle, the Trailhawk, is the active safety. So this has the adaptive cruise control. That includes active braking, which has proven valuable to me at least one time on the interstate, but the adaptive cruise control is fantastic. If you're on long distance drives, if you're driving in heavy, I won't say stop and go traffic, but if you're driving in heavy traffic, it's amazing amazing how much lower your stress level is if you're not cognizantly thinking about the fact that you're braking and accelerating, letting the vehicle kind of gauge the right speed. You do have the ability to determine how much space you want in front of your car, and being able to set that and just kind of go with the flow of traffic on a long road trip dramatically decreases fatigue, at least for me, makes for a far less stressful situation. And it also has the active lane guidance. It is adjustable. You can turn it on, you can turn it off, you can set the intensity, but this vehicle will actually help you correct and get back in lane. More importantly for me is it will provide a warning, both a visual and an audible warning that you are crossing the line frequently. And where that is really, really nice is on a longer road trip. Sometimes you tell yourself that you're good to drive, that you're not fatigued. And one of the key signs of fatigue is drifting either across the yellow line or across the white line. And the vehicle will actually tell you that you're doing that with a frequency. So I think that's very valuable, and I have used that myself on numerous occasions. Now, the bad. First is the seating position. I talked about this in the 5,000 mile review. This vehicle, the way that the seats are set up, kind of gives you the illusion that it's not quite sure if it's a truck or an SUV or a car. And I also get the vibe that it's a bit of an amalgamation of multiple vehicles. And I think it's an area where we're starting to see this vehicle is getting a little long in the tooth from a design standpoint. It's no surprise that a new Grand Cherokee is going to be coming out in the coming year. Right now, I'm 6'1". Well, I'm always 6'1", but sitting in this vehicle as a 6'1" individual, one of the things that first really is noticeable to me is the fact that if I put both of my arms where my arms are comfortable on the armrest and adjust my seat accordingly so that height-wise I am sitting, I'm gonna stop here so I can demonstrate this. So right now I am sitting where I would want to sit. I am probably just past 90 degrees, and both of my arms are where I would want my arms. I can grab my drink, I can easily grab the gear shift, touch the radio controls with no challenge, and my arms are comfortable where my shoulders are not up or dropped on the armrests. That being said, I have this steering wheel down as far as the steering wheel will go. And if I put my hands at the 10 and 2, you will see they are and this isn't a camera angle issue, my camera is level with my eyes. You will see that my hand is a good probably 3 inches above my shoulder. And if I drop down, that gets a little bit better, but it is definitely not where I would like that to be. The issue is definitely just the height. And this is the first vehicle that I have driven where the steering wheel will not drop below the dash cover, if you will. So really kind of a ridiculous level. And what is really interesting is that it will go up to a level that no one would ever use. I can't think of any situation where you would want your steering wheel this high. It's borderline ridiculous. So the entire system is askew. So that's a bit of an issue for me. And I feel like if someone was shorter than me, that problem is going to be amplified. It's going to be worse. So definitely, if you're thinking about a Grand Cherokee, take the time to take one for a test drive and really play with the seat and see what your thoughts are. But this steering wheel just does not work in this configuration for me. And if you raise the seat only has one adjustment. So you can adjust the front or the back. But once you've adjusted the front, if you adjust the back, it just pivots. And so if I were to raise this seat up, it starts to dump me forward. And I start to lose the support under my thighs, which then creates an even more uncomfortable riding position. So while this vehicle may seem luxury, and these are great seats, there's just not enough adjustment in the seats themselves to get the steering wheel, the seat, where you need it to be. That is amplified by the fact that it does not have adjustable pedals. So these are fixed pedals, which to me, on a vehicle of this price, having fixed pedals makes no sense. But you also then have a challenge of, for me, I like to have that 90 degree of my arms. To do that, I either have to bring the back of the seat up significantly, which is uncomfortable, or I have to move the steering wheel, move the seat quite forward, at which point I'm hitting the steering wheel with my knee when I move from the gas to the brake. So is it uncomfortable? It is not. This is still a very comfortable car to drive. But is it 100% comfortable? No. For me, I would rate this about an 8 out of 10. There's room for improvement, and hopefully in the new Jeep, they make those improvements. The other issue, the final issue I'll talk about that you may have noticed while I was driving is the noise. For a sticker price above $50,000 for this particular model, you would expect a fairly quiet and comfortable vehicle. I came from a Jeep Wrangler with a soft top to this vehicle. Prior to that, I had a sport-tuned Ford Mustang, and I was also driving a Chevy Silverado. So I was not coming from a Jaguar or Mercedes or BMW to this vehicle, so my expectations were not super high. But this vehicle is very loud. The test that I did was around 65 to 66 decibels on the interstate. By contrast, my lifted 2500 Hemi Bighorn Ram with aggressive all-terrain tires is 61 to 62. So this is a louder driving experience. It is incredibly windy. Outside of the rattles and the whistles I talked about, the wind noise in this vehicle is very, very loud. It does help to shut the sunroof cover, but it is just a very loud vehicle driving down the road. And you do find yourself kind of yelling when you're talking to someone. It is also a bit of a rough ride, and that's really I think the thing that will be a determinant for a lot of people. This is a Trailhawk. It does have the air suspension, and it is a little bit more of a sport tune, rougher ride than I think a lot of people might want. So if you are looking at this vehicle, I would do a longer test drive. This is probably not the, hey, dealer, take me on the little route around town that you normally do. I would go early. I would tell the dealer, tell the salesperson that you need to take this car out for a while. And I would try to do a good 25, 30, maybe 45-minute test drive in the vehicle. Drive on some rough city streets, take it out onto the interstate, take it onto a country road if you can, because you're going to want to drive this on lots of different road conditions to really get a vibe of the ride comfort. These leather seats are not the most comfortable seats you're going to ride in. You add in the stiffer suspension, and you do create a vehicle that has a bit of a rough ride. Is it terrible? No. Is it a Kia Soul? No. It's much better than that. But it isn't the luxury sport utility that I think a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people call a Grand Cherokee the American Range Rover. And I've driven Range Rovers, folks. I don't want to burst your bubble, but this is most definitely not a Range Rover. Now, mind you, it hasn't broke down yet, so it's not a Range Rover in that respect. But ride comfort is a little rough, but manageable. So to sum it up, active safety, if you're looking at buying this vehicle, that is well worth the investment. I would definitely, try to find one that has those features available on it. It's a bit of a rough ride. There's a little bit of wind noise, but overall, the vehicle does perform well. It does drive well. It is great to drive on curvy country roads, and everything we have thrown at it, snow, rain, high wind, ice, it has performed really, really well. There's just a couple of things that folks need to be aware of if they're driving this vehicle. So now let's take a look at what are my final thoughts. So the $1 million question as we wrap up a 15,000 mile review of this vehicle is, Matt, would you buy this car again? Yes and no. Would I buy another Grand Cherokee? Maybe. But if I did, I would not buy a Trailhawk. The reality is the Trailhawk from an appearance package is fantastic, but I don't think that it is worth what you're paying for. The active suspension is just not that impressive. For the most part, I find it more annoying than anything else. I'm driving a four-wheel drive sport utility. I want it to look like a four-wheel drive sport utility, and the stock ride height with the air suspension is too low in my opinion, and it's annoying to raise it every time I go. Yeah, I know that's looks, but a lot of the reason we buy aggressive, capable sport utilities is for the look, and this just loses it. The stock ride height is just kind of stupid. Also, the majority of the time, you don't need to raise and lower your suspension. Yes, this vehicle probably could make it through parts of Moab, parts of Rubicon, but I'm not going to take it there. I'm going to drive fire roads. I'm going to drive some rutted back roads. I'm going to drive through some fields. The stock ride height of a Grand Cherokee is fine. I don't need this suspension. Secondly is the external looks with the different front bumper might provide a little bit of approach angle increase, but not enough to make a difference, and certainly not enough for the additional cost of the Trailhawk. So I would not buy this vehicle again. I would possibly buy a Grand Cherokee, however. I think the stock Grand Cherokee ride height looks great. The two things that would be driving my purchasing of a Grand Cherokee would really be the active safety, which I believe is available on all models. So I would drive for the active safety, and the QuadraDrive 2 suspension, or QuadraDrive 2 four-wheel drive system. So if you can find a base model, if I could find a base model Grand Cherokee, cloth seats, regular sunroof, not the panoramic, it's kind of unnecessary, with the QuadraDrive, that probably is the best Cherokee that you could configure. There are lift kits for it. There's a lot of other options. The Trailhawk it's mostly an appearance package, in my opinion. That being said, if I'm buying another Jeep product, I'm probably going to go with the Cherokee and not a Grand Cherokee. The Grand Cherokee is not dramatically bigger than the Cherokee. Cherokee gets you locking differential, which 90% of the times that I would be off-road, I would much rather have a locking differential than 2 inches of ground clearance. It's also more fuel efficient, has better approach angles, and in my opinion, I think it looks better than the Grand Cherokee. The Grand Cherokee looks very dated on the outside. That's assuming I bought another Jeep. If you gave me my $45,000 back, I really would have to think hard about what vehicle I would start over with. I don't think it would be a Jeep product, to be honest. I think the Toyota 4Runner has come a long way. It now has active safety features. It now has Apple and Android connectivity. And in my opinion, it is a far more capable, far better looking vehicle than either the Cherokee or the Grand Cherokee. So I really think that that's, from a off-road standpoint and from a daily driving standpoint, that vehicle probably checks more of the boxes. Certainly more room in the back. The storage is much, much higher. It almost has truck-like storage with the rear seats folded down. And I think now the technology has caught up that that's, you know, a reasonable daily driver. And if you're not interested in off-road, this is definitely not the vehicle you want. It's certainly not the most luxurious vehicle. The claim to fame of any Jeep product is its ability to go off-road, but if off-road to you is an unplowed city street, there's a lot of better options out there for you. The Subaru Outback is arguably one of the best road trip vehicles that you'll find. Has a tremendous amount of safety features, a tremendous amount of storage. Is it a little goofy looking? Yeah. Would I rock a Subaru Outback? Probably, but it's certainly not the coolest vehicle. I get it, but from a functionality standpoint, it's a lot of stuff in one package. If you're looking for luxury, the stuff coming out from Kia and Hyundai right now, the Kia Telluride, luxury-wise, makes this look like, well, a Kia 10 years ago. The leather is better, the controls are better, the interior is better. This thing, and in 2019, looks just like it did in 2010. The interior has not changed, and you really feel that in here. And when you're spending upwards of $45,000 on a vehicle, you do not want a vehicle that looks like it did 10 years ago. So long and short of it is, there are better options. There's better options for someone that's looking for a go-anywhere adventure vehicle. There's better options for somebody that is looking for a daily driver. This vehicle does check a lot of boxes, but it doesn't check plus those boxes. It does what it needs to do in each category okay, and there was a time when being able to check all those boxes was enough. But now there is a lot of vehicles, both from Jeep and from other manufacturers, that will do what this vehicle does, and it will do it just as well for 99% of the people that own it. So am I going to trade it off? Am I going to get rid of it? Not yet, but it is my track record to get a new car every year, year and a half. So we're going to keep driving it for now. Going to see what happens when the new Bronco comes out. Going to see what happens when the new Land Rover Defender comes out. Both of those vehicles have caught my eye. I'm also holding out hope that there is a new body style Toyota 4Runner coming out soon. I'd be really interested to see that. So while this is probably the last review of this vehicle, I think at 15,000 miles, anything that happens after 15,000 miles, if there's a standout, I'll make a video about it. But the next review is going to be a different car. So stay tuned for that. If you have questions, comments, or need to hear something specific about this vehicle, please do not hesitate to shoot me a message, leave a comment below. If you like this video, please click like and definitely subscribe. Tons more videos coming on my overland build of my Ram 2500 5th gen. Tons of fun trips planned this year and adventures to places around the United States. So a lot of that coming, and I'd love for you to take those adventures with me. Till then, this has been Matt. Thanks for your time.